Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Craft Cider Across the Waves. My name is Shane, and I am a part of the Crowdcast team here for the Women's International Beer Summit and the moderator here for this session. Before we get started, there are just a few logistical things I'd like to go over. First of all attendees are automatically on mute to eliminate any background noise during the event, but you can always ask any questions that you have by submitting them through the Ask a Question box at the bottom of your screen. If you pop it into the chat, I will make sure to pull it over into that box for you as well. We'll get to as many of those questions at the end of the presentation as we can during our scheduled event time. If you see a question that has already been asked that you'd like to hear the answer to, instead of repeating it, you can upvote it, and then it'll pop it up to the top of the Q&A box. You can also make comments throughout the event in the chat on the right-hand side of your screen, but keep in mind that only questions in the official Ask a Question feed will be answered at the end of the event. So if you want it answered, please make sure to put your question there. I will be posting some links as we go through. Please keep an eye out for them. If you have any connectivity issues during the seminar or you notice that your video is lagging, you can try to refresh. Refreshing normally corrects these. If that doesn't work, try clicking pause, waiting a second, and then hitting play. If neither of those options work, you can try lowering your video resolution by hovering your mouse over the video player and clicking the gear icon in the bottom right. From there, you can lower the resolution to either 720 or 360p. Finally, as a worst case scenario, you can try putting your video into compatibility mode. You can always jump back into the Sunday AM Sunday welcome. That's where we're hosting our exhibit hall this morning. We also want to take a second to highlight the scholarship opportunities our sponsors have made available. Please head over to our queenofbeer.beer website and make sure you sign up for any of the scholarships you are interested in. Winners will be drawn at random and notified by email after the summit. Last but not least, we are recording this event, and the recording will be available at this very same link a few minutes after we end the live broadcast. If you'd like to download the presentation slides, we'll make sure we have that uploaded to the website by the end of the day. We will also, any questions asked and marked as answered will be noted as a bookmark clip in the video itself, so you can always jump back to any specific questions you'd like to rehear the answer to. That's it from me. Now I'd like to hand you off to our speakers, MIchelle Pagano and Susanna Forbes. Take it away, you two.
Hey, thank you so much, Shane. Hey, MIchelle, how are you?
Good, how are you? Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Shane.
Yeah, so lovely to see you. You're bright and early. We're in the afternoon here, but...
So I guess you'll be having the cider and I'll be having the apple juice, the mulled hot apple juice with some spices in here. That's so. Cheers to you. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, everyone. A big wassail for the whole. You are now part of the cider community. It's so wonderful to be invited to be part of the beer summit, isn't it, MIchelle?
It is. It's nice to expand and just cross over to different industries that they have a lot of similarities, but it's nice to share what we learn and that sort of thing. And I know both of us actually have a, different background that led us into cider. So I don't know if you want to introduce yourself first, or shall I go first? Or, it's for everyone who may or may not know us.
You should go first, particularly since you did that wonderful session yesterday, which I caught some of. So
thank you so much for supporting me with that. I really appreciate it. It means a lot. So for those of you who may not know me, my name is MIchelle Pagano. I'm the Assistant General Manager at Skydance Brewery in Oklahoma City. I just relocated from New York, where I was working as Assistant Cider Maker in Queens prior to the pandemic. So the move was obviously just because life has changed and brought me a different journey. I have celiac disease, but I still brew gluten-free beer. Yesterday, I did the session that Susanna was talking about on Cider Making 101. If you want to make it at home, feel free to check that out. But yeah, my background started in beer, and then I got diagnosed with celiac disease and started brewing gluten-free beer and cider. And honestly, I never really cared for cider. I did it because, I couldn't drink anything else, and now I love it. And it's great to be part of, the community, not just for, judging and as an enthusiast, as a digital content creator on my brand, the Brew Babe, but also, in production and one of the things we hope to do at Skydance is opening up experimental section where we could do ciders as well and possibly some gluten-free treats. So that's my background.
Oh, well, that's so inspiring. I love the way that you dance across several sectors. And I think Shane's kindly going to share a couple of very homespun slideshows that I did to sort of help introduce me and Little Pomona, which is the cidery I co-founded with my husband, James. So here we are, James and I in the orchard. That's our little orchard. We have a lovely slope, lambs in the spring. The skies are wonderful. We're in Herefordshire. Our friend, a Pomelier, comes to help. All about the fruit. We make very low intervention cider. We test it a lot when we're picking and getting into harvest. Friends come and help us. There is a real sense of community, and that's powered us through. Lovely biodiversity everywhere, that's for sure. And then into the winter months with a bit of pruning, but you've always got the joy of an amazing cider at the end. And then just recently, last year, just sort of before the pandemic, we opened our tasting room, and that's really important to us because we're able to share our ciders. We have a little cider garden, and James and I just love the chance to explain what goes into it because we're kind of breaking the mold a bit. We also have a fun barrel maturation program, but the best bit is just seeing everyone when they come to our little cider garden. So that's Little Pomona, and I got there having been a journalist and specialising in drinks and specialising in drinks tourism, and therefore travelling to Herefordshire, which is it nuzzles next to Wales, so it's about 140 miles west of London. It's so rural, you don't necessarily go there for the heritage, although there is some, but when you do go there, you're amazed by the nature, the outdoors, and then the ingredients, and then the people. And what we found when we were traveling around was the ciders were amazing, and it's all to do with the fruit. So to cut a long story short, we did some research, 2 years of looking, and then we sold up. We lived near London in Epsom by the racecourse. We sold up, bought a little orchard, and started making cider in 2015. So it's been a journey, but I adore the wine world, the beer world, and now I'm part of the cider world. So
that's amazing. I love your story, and I actually was a journalist too before going into beer, and then I moved into public relations, and then that's when I got into beer shortly after that. But it's nice that we have very similar backgrounds prior to this industry. And so are you drinking your own, I'm assuming, your cider?
I am. And I'd love to share this with you. So this one's our flagship. It's called Old Man and the Bee. And we're Little Pomona. And we're Pomona because Pomona is the goddess of fruitful abundance. And we're little because we are little. But Old Man and the Bee, it's all from our little orchard. We've got just 120 trees, but we've got 4 different varieties. Oh, I can't find 4 varieties. And each year we pick the best from them. And the thing with us is, I know many of the cideries in your country, we give it time. So this latest vintage is 2018, and this was only released back in March. So it took that time for us to feel it was ready for drinking now. And now we've got a sort of lovely golden liquid. It's got some acids in there because we have Foxwell, which is a beautiful bitter sharp, and I'm sure you'd love it. And it would be akin to some of your amazing apples. And then we've got some bitter sweets in there, Dabinet, which I know you know.
I love Dabinet, yeah.
Oh, isn't it brilliant?
It is.
So wonderful. And then we've got Ellis Bitter, and then Harry Masters Jersey. And that latter one is so funny because it's such a diva. It's like, I don't think I'm ready yet. Come back next week. And then when you do, you don't get quite as much fruit because it's not quite ripe, and then it's difficult to press, but you get amazing honeysuckle flavors. So you kind of get drawn into it, and it's one of the notes you get off this. So
it's a lovely color. It's almost like an amber color, and the label is phenomenal, right? Is it amber, or copper?
Yeah, I think so too. And I think we worked really hard on branding, and I think that's
I like it. The label's gorgeous.
We're very lucky. James and I, we met Blair Cote, who's now our assistant cider maker, at the Ross Cider Festival. And I'm kind of, some of these names and everything, they're on our resources sheet, aren't they?
We did put it together.
Yeah, we did, and it's available to download. So for all you guys, we're just expecting you to join in and come and be part of it. And the Ross Cider Festival is just the best. Ross on Wye Cider and Perry Company, very important to a lot of people's journey. And so we met Blair there. Just he'd heard of our ciders. It was so lovely to meet him. And then now he's part of our team. But his very good friend Ariana Sauda, back in Montreal, because Blair's from Canada, is an artist. So we've been able to I can't do this. We've been able to take Pomona out of the logo and into the orchard.
It's beautiful.
Do you find, perception and images, it's still important?
Yeah, it's the first thing we see. Some people will say that they don't judge a book by its cover, but that's subjective, obviously. I think for me, that's a false statement to say, right? Everything, it's the first thing, if we're blessed with having vision, it's the first thing we see, and so branding's so important. It tells a story. So you really have to think about, like, what is the story you want to share with everyone? What is your truth? And then, if you could just remember, a sentence or a statement or an image and just don't forget it and stay consistent, your branding will be on point. Now, of course, there's always facelifts, logos, and, changes with the times. But for example, the I Love New York logo, like, everyone knows that logo. How old is that logo, and everyone knows it. Some things are classic that don't need to be changed. But, if you've got a solid brand and it comes from your heart and, it's your truth and you keep with it, you're golden, you're set. So.
Yeah. It really helps you carry your story, which is really fun. You've had a very interesting career. Just reading up a little bit, what would you say were some of your highlights? Because you have done quite a few different things, Michelle. What would you say?
Thank you. I would have to say some of my highlights, obviously, I was a finalist this was 2 years ago, for the National Homebrew Competition with the American Homebrew Association, and it was gluten-free beer, which everyone knocks gluten-free beer, and they're like, oh, you can't make a good gluten-free beer, and I've won awards in the past with a Glen Cap and and local festivals and cidery festivals, but to win a finalist for the National Homebrew Competition, I was just mind blown. In that category, obviously, it wasn't the finalist, but it was definitely a big deal for me, and I guess it was such a big deal just having put together that recipe for years, having to deal with celiac disease and not knowing. This was pre-YouTube when I got diagnosed. Excuse me. So I couldn't just Google it, or I had to pick up books, but books about gluten-free beer weren't even written yet. So it was just really hard trying to figure out what works. I started sorghum just like everybody else, and then I figured out grains, because you have to remember too, it's people aren't used to eating millet and buckwheat, not a lot of people. So you gotta realize that that's gonna come through with your beer. And so, when people drink gluten-free beer at first, even if it's done right, they're like, well, this tastes a little off. It's like, well, don't drink a stout expecting a sour if that's a sour. Don't expect it's gluten-free beer with gluten-free ingredients that have these things. And if you don't really know what those ingredients are, it could taste a little foreign to you. But, I think we're coming, we're moving further in our industry. So, so I think the Homebrew Association, that award was great. And then just doing collabs and being asked, with different breweries and cideries. I did collaboration with I made a graph with OK Cider in Oklahoma and Neff Brewing in Tulsa, and they're gluten-free. And that's why I'm here. It's because I came here and I got stuck here in an ice storm back in October, and I fell in love with Oklahoma, and that's why I moved here. But so that was a great experience for me. And then working with the American Cider Association, other associations, to doing, public speaking, and workshops and that sort of thing. That's always been like a joy for me. So those are like, I guess, 3 highlights, and judging and working with these awards, but also, teaching it and talking about it. And of course, collaborating. I love production. That's what I do at Skydance. And it's something that I still, I love it. It's my highlights. How about yourself? What are some of your, I'm excited to hear.
That really is so inspiring. And they say that you make your own luck, and you obviously have. That's a wonderful story of your move to where you are now. Well, I guess with me, when Little Pomona, so we got going 2015, and we sold our first cider in 2017. And then in 2019, we entered the local paper, the Hereford Times. We entered their Cider Producer Award. And we're in the most amazing county, as you might know. So we've got Tom Oliver in this county. We've got a heritage of amazing perry producers, and there's Ross on Wye and everything. And then we won the Best Cider Producer in 2019. And for us, we're still learning so much. The community is so amazing, as with where you are, and we try and help others now and everything. But to win that was just like, we couldn't quite believe it.
That's huge. That's really huge for you all.
It was really
your team, and it's amazing.
Really fun. And then the other, I guess, highlight is I got asked to do a book, so I was really chuffed.
Oh
yeah. And the thing with the book, as you'll know, it came with a little advance, so I could travel. So that's how come we got to CiderCon for the first time.
Great.
Yeah, which is where we caught up, and then we caught up when that came out. And the book enabled me to have a real reason, rather than just as a journalist and not necessarily knowing where the story was going to go to chat with so many people. So
that was a whirlwind. That was amazing. CiderCon. I think that was the Chicago one, right?
Yeah, it was. Exactly. That's the thing. There's so much to kind of pick up. And then if I was to pick one more, in 2019, I was part of the team along with our friend Gabe Cook, also known as a ciderologist, to put on Ciderlands in Herefordshire. And what we did was we brought 15 different nations or regions, 15 different cider making regions to the county, and we were able to share with them what's going on. And that culminated in a banquet in the iconic hotel in Hereford, where we had people like the mayor and the head of the council and some MPs. And for us, that's really important, because cider has an interesting image over here sometimes, and sometimes people only know the very quaffable, as opposed to also the terroir driven. So it was really great to be able to change some perceptions, which comes back to what you were saying earlier.
Yeah, we have that, here, I know the American Cider Association is really working to educate, working with obviously the cider makers and the whole team, even the orchardists, sales reps, everyone, on that sector, but also help give the tools to those, different departments to educate the public. I have a lot of people saying, oh, like, I hate cider, it's sweet. It's like, that's like saying I hate beer and, because I don't like Guinness. It's like, well, there's so many different styles, so you can't just say, because you haven't found the right style yet. And so, we're moving towards that. Also, I don't know if this is where you are, but we just say cider. Well, at least in the cider world, you say juice and you say cider, but everyone's like, well, is it hard cider or is it regular? So, is it, what they mean is like, is it fresh form pressed versus is it fermented? But they don't, they're trying to figure out the difference still. I think we're kind of a little behind on that, but I don't know how it is over there, or is it clear distinction of what cider is, the definition?
It's a clear distinction in that it's cider or it would be apple juice. So we don't have that.
And here it's not.
Yeah, I know. That is another layer, isn't it?
It's very weird, yeah.
So you have to explain.
They say, is it cider or hard cider? I'm like, same thing. That's like saying, is it beer or is it hard beer? It's the same thing. Yeah. But hopefully we'll get there. We'll catch up with you. I mean, after all, we are behind in time zone, so maybe, Sorry about that.
the skill and the enthusiasm and the energy that one feels whenever we visit you guys, though, is just wonderful. So, do you think the industry, the cider industry, has changed much since you've kind of been involved or been observing? You know?
Oh yeah, I think I definitely. So I've only been in the cider industry for about, I want to say 5 years now. I've been in the beer industry longer. I believe it's evolved as far as consumers. I think we've gone up significantly in sales. Consumers, the different styles. I mean, even like rosé had like a big boom like 2 years ago, and I still think they're riding it. You know, sour ciders are kind of slowly. They had a little bit of a bubble with the beer community, but they're kind of like coasting. And also, I think as a woman, I mean, I don't know how you feel, but as a woman, I feel like we've made, definitely some wonderful strides. And, the Palm Boots Society or Palm Boots Association, and we just call Palm Boots on Facebook. But yeah, Palm Boots, they do wonderful things, just educating women and inspiring women and really working together to kind of push the industry forward and to be as inclusive and act, as inclusive as possible. How do you feel about it over there?
Yeah. I really agree with you on that last point. So Palm Boots was so inspiring for us over here, so much so that we set up Cider Women just actually nearly 2 years ago. Well, no, 18 months ago. But it was inspired by CiderCon. We did CraftCon, which is much smaller, but put on by the Three Counties Cider and Perry Association for craft makers, and then it was from a group of women there that we realized, very much in the minority, but we sort of realized that we could do something. So now there's 250 odd members of the group, and a bit like Palm Boots, the key thing is it's not only the producers, it's the servers, it's the sellers, it's everyone, and that's so important as we jointly get the message out. I think the other things I've noticed is that actually this may be different where you are, but there's much more, you might have been ahead, there's much more acceptance of 75 CL bottles than there was. I don't know where you are, but like when we started, everyone said, oh, that won't work. And it was like, we're not doing it just because we it's the economics. It doesn't work for us to get in half bottles. James really wanted, when we had half bottles initially, he wanted them in the same shape, part of the ethos, whatever. He didn't want a beer bottle shape. And so, but now 75 CLs, people are exploring a bit more and they're seeing them as valid sharing bottles. So,
it's a little bit different here. So I feel like that could fly as an option for like a wine bar or like a tasting room. Like I'm going to go to Texas Keeper in a couple of weeks. They're in Austin and they do large format bottles. But here, I mean, I think there is a really large group of people that put cider more in the beer category than the wine category. Depending on who you talk to. So like all of our ciders, not all of them, but majority of them that I've seen are in cans. Usually 12 ounces. I've seen some 4-pack, 16 ounces, but most of them are even just like 4-pack, 12 ounces. I see that the bottles and beer and cider, I feel like cider kind of follows the beer trend here a little bit. And they're doing less and less of those bottles, which is unfortunate. But I used to work at Descendant. They were out of New York City, and we did make large format bottles. So
great. Yeah. I think that's the other thing. You just hit on it. The beer community, and that's everyone who's at this conference, have been so welcoming.
Oh, yeah. It's great, isn't it?
It's just been so wonderful. We've really, really noticed that. And a lot of the market, because it's kind of getting away from purely refreshment cider. That's always amazing. It's sunny out there. It's not quite warm yet, but it's sunny. That's when we're thinking of lovely pints or whatever. But the other sort of cider, and it's been the craft beer community that's been happy to try new things and, new experiences. We've had one other thing, which is really fun, which is the growth of cider clubs.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah, and that's different. I know there's so many different sorts of cider clubs. There's the really amazing ones which are attached to a cidery, and then every 2 months or every 6 months you get a special pack. This is more actually attached to, say, a pub or a bar or something, and then they get a speaker in once a month, and it's gone virtual obviously in the last year. But then you draw in new people, and we had Manchester Cider Club. That's the one that started it all. They were inspired by Ross, who I mentioned earlier.
Yes.
And then Manchester has now, there's, Scotland, Brighton, Bristol, Birmingham. And it's a great way.
That's awesome.
Sharing. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really nice that, to hear and see that our industry has grown in positive ways across, the world.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know, what are some challenges or some lessons that you've learned over the years?
Well, that's interesting. One of them has been to stick with what we really believed in. So we really believed that we wanted to make dry cider, very fruity cider. So lots of people don't realize it's, bone dry or whatever. But then also that the sharing bottles would work, and just to keep going. So I think that was it. Then you learn things like cider takes longer to be ready to sell, so you have to redo your business plan. And what's been not necessarily a challenge, but a joy, has been working with different orchardists.
Nice.
Because there's less of a culture here of going and getting a supply of juice and bringing it. It's much more, you either harvest your own stuff if you've got some trees, or you go and harvest from someone else's orchard, or you ask an orchardist to work with you. So that is challenging to get the best fruit. So, but that's lovely. That's a relationship. It's part of the community.
It's give or take here with us.
Yeah.
A lot of cities that have cideries, they may work with their own, have their own orchard somewhere a little bit outside the city.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I know here in, I guess I can come out and say Oklahoma City, I know that they get their juice sent to them. I know they have a great relationship with whoever they work with, but I know just with that, their liquid, they get it sent. So there's not a whole lot of orchards here, and I think there's only one cidery in the whole state. So it's a little tough when you're landlocked, and not really much around. But that's beautiful that you get to go and take time. Similar to the beer industry. I remember my boss when I worked at LIC Beer Project in New York City. He would go to the Pacific Northwest and do a little tour and pick out his hops, or meet with them and see what hops he wanted to have for his beer. And then it's a nice experience. It really keeps you connected to start to finish. So beautiful.
Yeah, and I know obviously homebrew, and then also start making your cider. It all begins with those ingredients, doesn't it? It's kind of
very essential.
A fun thing. There's lots of inspiring women, both sides, well, all around the globe. And we've met some of the same folk at CiderCon, haven't we? And I thought maybe I could share with you some of the people.
Let's share some inspiring women with everyone here.
Oh, that would be really fun, because if I think Shane's going to be able to share just a few slides we have, and I can talk you through these. And
sure.
So Jean Noel, I'm just going to it's kind of past and present, if you like. So Jean Noel was really wonderful lady. She passed away a few years ago, but she was very inspiring in that she was in the classic area around Muchmarkle in Herefordshire, where there's so much amazing fruit. There's so many good producers, and she was the one who came along. She moved from Oxfordshire. I think she'd been running a dog boarding kennel or something like that. But she saw the fruit. She saw what you could do with it, and she just got in there and just did so much. She acted as a bit of a mentor for some of the key people, and so she, Tom Oliver knew her, and actually her and Tom Oliver were very instrumental in getting the Perry Pear on Slow Foods Praesidium list. So that means it's on the endangered list. So It was those two with Charles Martel, who's the expert who's written the books, and also is also renowned for a cheese which I've forgotten at the moment, but anyway, I'll remember. And so they had to go and lobby for that. So she's so amazing, and I only met her a few times, and it was one of those things where you're kind of just a bit in awe, so you don't know what to say, but it was still very inspiring to meet her. And the next picture is Emma Jordan, and actually we created some bursaries, the Three Counties Cider and Perry Association, in Jean's name to help aspiring cider makers from all around the country. And Emma is one of the ones, she won one of the first bursaries. And also what happens here a lot, there's some amazing community orchards and community gardens. And Emma's been very key in Summerwood. And do look up Blue Barrel Cider.
Oh, I will. Totally will.
amazing images as well. Beautiful images of break-dancing squirrels, as you do. Why not have a squirrel that's break-dancing? But there's a story behind that as well. But they're absolutely beautiful. And then Polly Hilton, Find and Foster. Some of you guys may have heard of her. She's down in Devon. And the name of her business is what she does. She finds old orchards and she fosters them.
That's beautiful.
She's really renowned for some real terroir-driven ciders. So ciders that really speak of the orchard. So if you ever get a chance, and I was speaking to her today, and I think she may get her ciders imported into New York, fingers crossed.
Oh, really? Well, I'll have to look up my contacts and have that specially delivered to me.
Yeah. Well, she's
I'll
absolutely...
find them on Instagram and Facebook. I'll follow them.
Yeah.
I'll stay tuned.
She's brilliant. If we could have the next slide, Shane. This is a collage of all of us of the founders of Cider Women, and I'll just briefly run through them because I think, as with everyone who's kindly joined us today, there's so many ways people can get involved in cider. So Kath Potter, I'm not sure, is it your top left? So
yes.
With the hat and the lovely t-shirt. So she's actually a Pomelier. She's Manchester Cider Bars. She's one of the people who got the Manchester Cider Club going, which is just brilliant. And they travel around and they spot good cider makers and producers. And just like you do, MIchelle, they give them the oxygen of sharing them on social media. So she's brilliant like that. Izzy, who you can see there, I'm not sure if you can see it on the image, but actually she's pushing a huge manual press.
I see that. My little one's like this at home in New York. She's got some big one over there. My goodness, the muscles of that woman.
She's absolutely wonderful. She's one of the current co-chairs of Cider Women, and Barleywood Cider. It's based in this wonderful walled garden just south of Bristol. Again, she's also a chef. So if you ever come over, you have to kind of sort of look her up. And the ciders are very beautiful and very true. And then Elizabeth Pimlett is director of the Museum of Cider. And it's amazing what she is uncovering. And she did an exhibition on the role of women in cider through the centuries. And that's probably the first thing that's documented how perhaps women were kind of just airbrushed out. They would have been there, but they just weren't put in the picture. But now things are changing. Fiona Matthews, Bartestry Cider, beautiful keeved ciders. I don't think they're going to get to the States just because they're small. But when anyone travels, you must try and find them. But also she had a very big role in setting up the Welsh Perry and Cider Society. There's me, right in a tree. That's the best place to be. Absolutely brilliant. We're on a farm here. We've moved. It's Brookhouse Farm, and they also grow a lot of hops, which is brilliant. But they've got these amazing orchards with Dabinet, our friend Dabinet. Then next up is Hannah Barton. She's Kniveton cider, but not only is that, she's also a publican. So there's this lovely sort of duality there. And then Beth Holgate. She doesn't make cider. She's just one of our lovely aficionados who just helps us. It's
cider
amazing.
Enthusiast.
Yeah, exactly. And fresh ideas. And you know what that's like. It's brilliant.
Oh, yeah. Awesome.
And then Lydia Crimp, again, you should look up Artist Store Cider. Lydia is actually a costume designer for theatre and stuff like that.
What interesting backgrounds all these women have.
I know.
It's incredible. You have a chef and you have,
yeah.
costume design.
I think that's a fun bit. I think, and then the other people I've listed there, Jane Payton's another Pomelier, very instrumental, and then the Burham Collective or Birham Collective. People do look that one up, follow them, and typically, as soon as I finished our resources sheet, Michelle, I realised I'd missed a few key people, and they are one of them. So you must follow them. They're really helping to lead the diversity discussions. And so it's really, they have beautiful things on their site, but also they're kind of helping us move forward there. Sorry, I'm going on a little bit long, maybe. I hope it's not too long. Shane, we could have the next one. Then we're going over to your side of the pond, as it were. And just wonderful people, really people should look up. Autumn Stoschek, Eve Cidery in New York. She's just so connected to the land and the trees and the ciders. Eleanor Leisure, Eden, she's the new president of the American Cider Association, isn't she? So she's always so inspiring, as well as an expert.
But full of knowledge, as always.
Yeah.
So knowledgeable.
It's absolutely wonderful. And then Tilted Shed, just beautiful over in California. Again, they've got a lovely tap room. Have you managed to get there yet, Michelle?
Tilted Shed?
Yeah.
No, I haven't, unfortunately.
I know, we've all got...
I went to Cali for CiderCon last year in San Francisco. Never got it. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. We all
Don't
need
think
to...
I'll get to it this year. Perhaps next year.
Exactly. I think that's... Well, Tilted Shed, do look out for the ciders have such amazing flavour. And then the final one, just wrapping up with a couple more from your side of the pond, if Shane could forward to the last one. So Ria Wincaller's podcast, Cider Chat, I just love it.
Ria's a dear friend of mine.
Really?
Yeah.
Fantastic. It's so useful. Honestly, anyone who's watching who wants to get into cider, it's been with us ever since we began, and we've learnt so much, and it's really opens the mind.
I see you also have Darlene Hayes on there. She's another woman that inspires me. Well-known author and speaker across our industry here in the States. She's a dear friend of mine as well. So I'm glad you have her. You jotted down on there.
Yeah, I really would. I'd tune in with them. And then Elizabeth Hudson Valley Farmhouse Cider, again, an inspiring person over the years. It's amazing what she's done. And then Jenny Dorsey with the Shilling Cider House, which I just want to go to. I can't wait. But there we go. That's the future. What about you? Who's inspiring you over your way?
So obviously I see you have Ria and Darlene. So for me, those two on my list. Brooke Glover, she's actually the owner of Swill Dog, I believe somewhere, I can't remember if it's in Florida or Georgia, somewhere down south, but not only as an owner of a cidery, but also like a marketing guru, marketing genius. And so she inspires me not just on the cider end, but on the marketing end of things. So yeah, definitely, would add her to the list. And also Michelle McGrath, also a dear friend. And we're all friends, actually. Everyone's like, oh, dear friend, dear friend, dear friend. But that's what happens when you're in the cider world. You meet incredible people, and they inspire you, and you inspire each other, and they become, dear friends of yours. Michelle McGrath, she is executive director, I believe, of the American Cider Association. She really actually helped me get involved in the industry. I started, a couple of years ago. It was when we were in Baltimore, I think. It was a cider con. I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago. And I applied for a press pass. And she gave me the press pass, and I took a train down to Baltimore. And, I was still in the beer world. And I learned so much about cider, and I really took interest in the CCP, which is the Certified Cider Professional Program. And then I wanted to go to school for it, so I took a program at the Cider Institute of North America, at Cornell Agritech, and so all these things started happening. And I started, just developing a better palate for cider, and working at, judging at Glencap and the Big E with like Rhea. And it's all these incredible things happened, and it was all because of Michelle McGrath. So like, if she, I don't know what would have happened if she didn't, be in the press pass. I mean, I probably still would have went, but it was nice that she introduced me to all these incredible people. So those are actually at the top on my list in cider. And as far as beer world, I actually want to point out 2 people that that I followed through their whole journey the last couple of years that I've been involved. First one's Julia Herz, the journalist. She's a journalist, inspirational speaker. She spoke yesterday. And the second one would be Karen Hertz. She's a founder of Holla Daily Brewing. It's a gluten-free brewery in Colorado, and her story is it just speaks to me. She's done incredible things for the gluten-free beer community, and she's invited me to speak at the conference a couple of years ago, and we're just so well connected, and I always keep tabs on them, and every time I'm there, I visit, and it's just inspiring that she's, I believe her title is the founder and owner, I think, of the actual brewery. So, and they just expanded a year and a half ago, I think. Yeah. So it's incredible. These women are just so incredible, and they definitely inspire me. And of course, yourself, Susanna, obviously, right? That's why when we were talking, I was talking, with some of the folks here at, who are organizing the, the tracks here. I was really excited to hear that we were going to be paired up. So,
well, that's so kind of you, and I absolutely agree with you about. It's wonderful, the community and the way people help. And Michelle has also been a real help to me. And we love it. Also, people come to us and we try and help them and stuff in the same way. And I do think, just as with the beer community, cider is very welcoming.
It's very welcoming. Yes, there are some differences, but it's very welcoming nonetheless.
Yeah. I think actually people realize if you're going to stick at it, then you're serious about it, and you don't mind a bit of hard graft. But it's I think that sort of role of enabling and empowering is really important as we kind of share it. It's not quite a brave new world because it's been there, but on the other hand, we haven't always had the opportunity to have access to it. So I don't know. What do you? What sort of advice would you give to someone who might want to join in the cider industry?
Yeah, I think I always say, take the plunge, right? I always take the plunge, like pretty much any decision I've done here. I couldn't drink beer anymore. I didn't give up. I was like, well, I'm going to find a way to drink beer. I'm allergic. I'm going to find a way. Yeah. And then when that seemed to be a small pool, I want to learn about cider. I'm just going to take the plunge and learn. I was out of a job. I was unemployed because of COVID for a year. And I took the plunge, packed up my Jeep, and drove across the country. But there's nobody here. I don't know anybody here. Now I have a nice little friend group, but there's no other New Yorker here. So take the plunge. Don't be afraid. We have great resources that, we're providing, obviously in the link, or we're going to drop a file down, and then the slideshow, with some of the women that we've been speaking about, I'm sure they'd be more than happy to connect with you. So take the plunge. Don't be afraid. Do some research on what local groups are there, and if there aren't any, create your own. I mean, Get a couple of good friends together. I mean, we see that with the book clubs. We see that with like mommy and me clubs. You know, you could do that with cider. So I feel like as far as the advice goes, you know, just take the plunge to learn, and also to be humble. That's another big important like lesson that I've learned as a cider maker, but also as just a person in both industries. Be humble. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. Sometimes I say things that I'm like, oh man, why did I say that? I should have. That was incorrect. It's actually, this is the method we use, you know, and you know, sometimes you get a little nervous or whatnot. And, you know, just to be humble and accept that, oh, I made a mistake. Even in production, oops, I made a mistake, you know, and you learn that as a lesson, and, you know, you kind of stay humble and keep learning and that kind of thing. I guess those are my lesson. I guess those are some advice.
Oh, I think that's such good advice. And I completely agree with you. If you're starting, do reach out. And actually, social media is brilliant for that.
Oh yeah, it's huge.
It's just, and honestly, I mean, we get quite a few, you know, questions via Instagram, because as soon as you follow or whatever, you can direct message, and you know,
and just looking to hashtags like hashtag cider and women cider. Hello, hashtag women in cider, hashtag cider women, hashtag cider. I mean, following these hashtags, reaching out to people, seeing what people are posting. You know, that's another way to connect. That's how I've made friends across the country, and you know, even in Canada. Just following some of these reviews or videos or interviews. I mean, I find them very insightful. I have alerts and notifications on, and now you know, I talk with them quite often. And you know, we're in a virtual world now, so there are plenty of ways to reach out to people.
I think you're absolutely right. And back here, actually, because some of the cider clubs like Manchester, because that went virtual, what that meant was actually those of us. So Manchester's only 3 hours from here, but still, you just can't necessarily get there just when you want on a Thursday evening. But you can join in virtually, and so then you have a chance to sort of learn and listen to others. And I think that never stops. It's really an exciting time.
Sure.
I think.
For sure.
What do you find is the most common questions when you're, you know, giving your classes, or, you know, about people getting started and stuff like that?
I feel like the most common questions are where to get ingredients from. I feel that's a question. I always support local homebrew shops, and even though this is cider, I mean, I started making cider again at home, you know, as if I didn't get enough of it at work, right? I'm making beer. I started making cider here at home in Oklahoma, and you go to the homebrew shop, they have wine making and cider making and beer making and kombucha making supply. So, you know, people ask, where do you get your ingredients from? That's number one. Number two is, you know, what are some helpful resources? And, you know, obviously, again, we have a sheet for that. But, you know, YouTube, books, there's a ton of insightful like articles online and blogs that you can follow and find. So that's another question I often get. Other little ones like, is, you know, cider gluten-free? Yes, it is. What else? This is a big one. How do you get involved working professionally in the cider world or beer world? That's another question I get a lot. And so my advice is to reach out, literally like write an email and send your, you know, see if there's an opening, whether it's cider tending, whether it's cellar person work, or, you know, on the farm, you know, sales, whatever it may be. You never know. Every job I've had in the beer and cider world, I'm not even kidding, was through an email. Was, hi, not sure if you're hiring. My name is so-and-so. Here's my resume. And every single job did not have a job opening, and they created one for me. So you just don't know unless you ask. What's the worst thing to say? No? Okay. I mean, I got turned down like 200 jobs last year. Did 200 times, and I kept going, you know. Eventually you'll want, you know, one job that's gonna say, yeah, we're gonna take a chance on you. So, you know, that's advice for, you know, I have. And unfortunately, beer festivals and cider festivals are kind of not happening. But if it were, I'd say volunteer at a beer or cider festival and start to meet some of the cider makers and brewers. And that's another way how you can actually, you know, look to see a job, you know, be present and introduce yourself, you know. So those are some ways you can get involved in the community, like volunteering as a judge or steward or stewardess at like a competition. Those are some advice I have, or questions that people ask.
Yeah. I think the volunteering thing is very, very relevant over here as well. And I think a lot of people, so over here, there's a tax break at 7,000 litres. So, which artificially keeps a lot of people below 7,000. They get upset. That's, you know, that's okay for a boutique cidery, but it's hard to make necessarily a business. It can be a side business, and it can be absolutely brilliant, some of the best. But what happens is when you get to 7,000 litres, once you go to 7,001, you have to pay tax on everything. So the only way to make it economically viable is to then increase to 20,000. So that's a bit different. So it's a bit of a different scene. But the reason I'm saying is that if anyone is over this way, and actually we have had some wonderful volunteers. Lovely friend Kelly, she came over from the States. She volunteered with us for a harvest. So, and I did some volunteering. I went over to Ross when I wanted to learn. So there is a real culture of perhaps volunteering at harvest to find out, because it's so different to brewing in this respect. You know, if you're starting to homebrew, the lovely thing is you can start, and then you can catch up with a mate, and then you might do, and then you might, well, next weekend we could have a go, couldn't we? Right, you get the ingredients, let's go. You know, we only get one chance with the harvest. And so if you want to get involved, this thing of volunteering, but also, as you say, festivals, wonderful way to learn, isn't it?
100%.
Just brilliant. And then you also hone your palate, which I think is a really fun thing, which women are so brilliant at.
Oh yeah. Sense of smell.
Yeah.
Very good.
Sorry, I'm gonna pop in just a smidge. We do have a few questions if you guys would like to shift over to that. Yes.
Yeah, let's answer some questions.
Let's do that.
All right. So the first one, it was in the same vein as you were talking in Susanna. So I really struggle with stripping the sugars out of ciders when I'm making hard cider, and I am not overly keen on back sweetening. What yeast do you recommend for a smooth, semi-sweet cider that doesn't require back sweetening?
That's very interesting, and I'm probably going to pass that one over to you, Michelle, because we don't use yeasts. It's all natural yeast with us, but that's because we're able to get the fruit from the orchards and everything like that. Michelle, can you help with that?
Sure. So the cider yeast that I believe it's either a wine yeast or English ale yeast, I think. Well, I had in my slide yesterday, there's a yeast that I can't remember the name. It's like WLPPN. It's a bunch of like letters and numbers. But that's the yeast that I've used home brewing, making cider at home. But also, I know that some cideries are successful on like a commercial level using that yeast as well. And I actually, the recipe that I made for that class yesterday, that I did not back sweeten that at all, and did not strip. Like it was, it wasn't semi-sweet to an extent, but it was more like a semi-dry. But that's the yeast I would recommend. I could pull it up real quick. I don't remember on the top of my head. Oh, actually, hold on. I think I have it.
Hey.
I realized I had my tablet over here. Like, wait a minute.
Oh,
hold on a second. I'll get it for you.
Yeah, it's.
And Michelle, we are making your presentation available on the website, so we'll bring that back in and link that in.
I totally lied.
Or they're asking if it's a white lab yeast or.
We can pull it through. Another thing that you could use too, I know you said you don't really like to back sweeten. You don't have to use sugar. I know some folks use honey as well. So that's something for you to look into. But I do have a yeast for you. I have actually 2 yeasts, and I can get that for you. I don't know how I can reach out. They can reach out to me directly. I could send it to them. But White Labs makes them. There's one that I mentioned in my session yesterday, and there's another one actually that I've recommended. I can't think of the top of my head.
You can always comment on these questions if you want to go back into the replay. Yeah. You should be able to come in and comment on the questions afterwards.
Awesome.
Yes.
I'll do that as soon as we're done. It's White Labs. They make yeast, and they have like someone, I think Marwana asked the question. Yes, I'll come back and I'll answer it.
And then is there a preferred vendor or website where we can purchase your book, Susanna?
It was published in the States as well. So hopefully if you've got a bookshop, they should be able to ask for it. That's so nice of you to to mention that. I know it's available via Amazon. And then I should have possibly said our ciders are being brought into the States just this month with Ancho. And
I love Ancho.
I know. I can't tell you how excited we are that they would bring. So we've just got a very small amount now, and then hopefully the next shipment there'll be a little bit more, including some of the Old Man and the Bee. And then I think Sam's going to have my book, but that's a few months down the line. But
Awesome.
thank you. I have a really lovely section on America.
That's awesome. I can't wait.
And then is there any specific language to ask or to use when we're looking for a drier taste versus a sweeter flavor when we're drinking cider?
Yeah, the scale you would refer to, right, Susanna?
Yeah, there's a scale. I think asking about dry is also good. And also, I think one of the things we're encouraging folks over here, and it may be you're ahead on this, we're trying to encourage producers also to put the apples on and to put, some good explanations. We're kind of, myself and Jane Payton, who I mentioned earlier, we coined the hashtag Rethink Cider a couple of years ago.
Nice. And
it was partly for everyone out there who thinks there's only one thing, but it was also partly us producers have to work harder. So I think it's really useful, to begin with that dry, but also then is it dry and fruity, or is it dry and zesty? It's a really good question, and I don't think we've got the complete answer yet, but people are trying.
I think also what's helpful, and I spoke about it a little bit yesterday, is this is obviously a beer summit. We're very familiar with different hops, and the reason we understand them, obviously there's tasting notes to it. The only way to really, really understand it is obviously to have, the beers with the single varietal. So the same thing could be applied to apples, right? So what does a Newtown Pippin, taste like? I could tell you what it tastes like, but unless you actually have a cider that's just with Newtown Pippin, or you or smell it and taste it, that's when you'll really understand what that apple is. And so I encourage folks to try when you do see a cider that's using the apples that are listed, or just one single one. That's another great way to understand or get an idea of what it could taste like. And understand really your palate and what you're looking for. So that's another level on that. Yeah,
I think that's really, really good. I mean, I love your Northern Spy apple, and
Northern Spy. Me too.
And the Gravenstein has such a hold. And
yes, and I just had a cider. I think it was out of California. It was with Gravenstein. It was really good.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the sort of thing. And so we major in cider fruit, which is the ones with the tannins. But now we're finding Egremont russet, and that's a dessert fruit. But the complexity you get from the russeting, and I have a feeling, because we were chatting with Steve Sellin of South Hill Cider, that your golden russet has a similar sort of potential to give just amazing complexity. Yeah. So it is, if we can just ask, if we get a cider and it doesn't say, let's ask. Yeah,
a lot of cideries here, I don't know how it is up there, but they'll use a blend, like a juice, and you kind of really don't know what you're getting. But if you're fortunate, and it's quite expensive to get one that's just a single, or like a blend where you get to pick a couple of things. When I always get excited when I see on the bottle, usually, and I also notice usually on like large format bottles, you'll see them listed, not so much on cans. The apples,
Tilted Shed, I know they list them, and and it is really, really fun. There's some new cideries coming through as well, isn't there? You know Caitlin Brahm, who
Yonder.
So that's a whole new one, isn't it? And I've seen that in cans. I haven't seen it in anything else yet, but I think I've tried one or two. It was very nice.
Yeah, I have had them as well.
Awesome. We just had one last question of where in California is the Tilted Shed, and we had an answer of it's over in Windsor, California. Does that sound about right?
It does. I went there but it was Darlene who took me. And so I was lucky enough to go there. That sounds right. You'll absolutely find them.
It's gotta be outside San Fran, right?
Well, it was a couple of hours.
Oh, was it?
A couple of hours north, but their tasting room. I tell you what, when we get off, I'll add that into the chat, because their tasting room is really lovely, and you definitely should get there if you can.
So Beth is asking if it's a winemaking area then.
Yes, it absolutely. That's the fun bit. There's both, and so it's exciting to see. And I think one of the changes as well, which we didn't go into, is that actually winemakers are getting into making cider as well. And why not? You make cider just like you make wine. And that's happening in Australia as well, and New Zealand, and certainly in Middle Europe. But yeah, as you say, winemaking.
Breweries are starting to get into cider.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
awesome.
As an option. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the fun and the skill of being able to play with fermentation, isn't it? Which we're very lucky. I think we're nearly coming to the end of our time.
I think so.
Yeah, we're about there, but we don't have any more questions unless anyone else wants to pop one in real quick. The chats will remain up and running even after we close the session, so you can absolutely come back in. You should be able to open up that ask a question box, jump to wherever you would like, and also make comments on those questions as well. So that should all be there available for you. Kelsey does have a question of, has anyone ever lagered a cider?
Yes. And I believe, don't really want to spill the beans here. If they haven't done it, they're doing it in the next few weeks. There is a cidery. Pretty sure they're doing it. I don't even want to spill the beans. Yes, it's been done, and there is a cidery that is coming out. It's going to be draft only that is doing it. So yes. Yeah, you could use Saison yeast. I've seen cideries. OK Cider here does a lot of beer-inspired cider. I believe they might make a Quebec yeast cider, I believe. A Quebec cider, like using at least yeast. And then they've also done an American pale ale kind of cider. So yeah. But yes, they've done it. There have been ciders that have done it. It's pretty awesome. So I can look that up for you and send it to you if you like.
Fantastic. And we've linked both of your kind of speaker profiles into the chat already. All of your social media handles are linked into there, but we can always pop more into the chat too after we're done here.
Sounds good. Thank you.
If you'd like, the Sunday welcome is going to be our exhibit hall for the morning, and then we'll have a Sunday afternoon exhibit hall for everyone to jump into as well. Awesome. So if you guys are around, pop in. And if there's a good conversation going, we can bring you on screen in those as well. So thank you so much, Michelle and Susanna. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much,
everyone. Enjoy the rest of the summit.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa, for inviting me. It's so amazing to join you. Well done on everything. Brilliant.
You guys are amazing. This has been fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye.
Good session. Bye.
Bye.